Right then, in this video, we're taking a detailed look at a classic 1970s era Bennie lift. This one was built in the early 1980s, one of the last ones of these to be installed, because after this, Bennie moved on to using Thames Valley DC Pulse AC logics, and also used the more regular style Duhas buttons rather than their own buttons. So this lift, in two different meanings of the term, is one of the last of its kind, one of the last surviving ones of its kind, plus one of the last ones of its kind to ever be built. And then this is going into the early 80s. Schindler Marconic was coming out at this point. Think how advanced Schindler Marconic is compared to this. So this lift was already pretty much outdated at the point it was built. And it is a very classic, interesting lift, so let's take a look at it. Now we go into the motoring. This lift has still got its original relay lift logic. So then, let's take a closer look at this lift logic. This logic's got a lot of relays. Considering this is just a single speed lift, I'm really surprised at how many relays it has. This logic is not one call at a time, as it can remember calls, it can remember internal calls, and as for landing calls, it can only remember landing calls on the down journey only, as it's branded as a down collective. This does add to the number of relays, but one thing to add is that this lift does not have a mechanical position device. The positioning is also done with relays remembering a lift's position, so that's also going to add a lot more relays to it. But even with that said, there's still a surprisingly large number of relays here. So if you take a closer look, the relays at the top here are the floor relays. Then you've got lots more relays for handling the floor function and the moving to the different floor functions. Then you've got loads more relays, all doing managing calls, managing a lift. Surprising lot of relays there. Then down here you've got even more relays at the bottom. Then over here, these larger relays are the floor positioning relays, because this lift does not have a mechanical positioning device, which is usually a more custom mechanical device to work out its position, work out whether to go up or down for a call, work out what point to stop a lift. Instead it's using these relays. Also notice that these relays are bigger than the other ones. Then if we look over here to the right, you can see the motor resistors. Then you've got the door contactors to open and close the doors. Then down here you've got the trip pots. These are like trip switches that trip if too much current goes through the logic. Then the interesting thing is that down here you've got Slate logic. Probably some of the last Slate logics to ever be installed, considering this is the early 80s now, well it's 70s design, but still using Slate logics that late on is crazy. And the weird thing is, this logic contains relays, not just a generation apart, but 2 generations apart. Because you've got the Ice Cube relays, which is a very 70s sort of thing, could have been designed at a very early use of these, maybe 60s, I don't know, but the Slate style logic, that's going back to like 1920s. It's just so odd to see these 2 different things on the same logic. Now if you take a look at the main contactors, you've got main contactor, up contactor and down contactor. Notice these have been replaced with modern ones. So you can see all the space on this Slate board where these 3 large Slate style contactors would have been, and they've been replaced with much smaller modern components. Although there is one classic Slate relay still here, which is this one, which I believe might be for the unlatching door cam. And here is the transformer for the lift logic voltage. And here is the selenium DC rectifier. And here is the phase rotation protection relay to make sure 3 phases haven't changed order, to make sure the rotation is still going the correct way. Governor Express, Governor. Well, Bennie did use a lot of Express parts. Cloth wire, those are original. That's original from when it was installed. 14th of the 7th, 1981. And a date on that, 1983. So then, let's now take a look on top of the lift. This is what a Bennie car top looks like. This is a classic tower block lift. It's very well built, it's got a chassis, and it's got a very rare original Bennie door mechanism we'll take a look at in a minute. Sadly though, the inspection control has been replaced. Let's take a ride on top of the lift. And now let's take a look at the very rare door mechanism. This is an original Bennie side roller door mechanism. These are so rare to see because usually they've been replaced with GAL. Let's take a look at how this mechanism works. In the door itself is where the key goes in, and the key pushes this latch which unlocks the door. But the lift itself unlocks the door in a completely different position because the doors have a side roller and has a side unlatcher system very similar to a gated lift.